What if the most dominant move in any high-stakes conversation isn't what you say, but what you deliberately choose not to say? Why silence reveals more than any question ever could. Here's something most people miss entirely. When you go quiet in a negotiation, you're not being passive. You're activating one of the most powerful psychological triggers in human behavior. The human brain is wired to fill voids. It's a survival mechanism. Silence creates a vacuum, and the other person's mind rushes to fill it. That's when they start talking themselves into corners you didn't even know existed. Think about how most business conversations go. Someone makes a statement. The other person immediately responds. Back and forth. It feels productive. It feels like communication. But here's the reality. Whoever talks more loses. Because talking reveals position. It exposes limits. It shows desperation. The person who controls the silence controls the frame. This isn't theory. This comes from studying how elite performers operate under pressure. Chess masters don't just think about their next move. They use pauses to unsettle opponents. Trial lawyers don't fill every second with arguments. They let damaging testimony hang in the air. Military strategists throughout history understood that the pause before action can be more destabilizing than the action itself. Most professionals are taught the opposite. They're told to be quick on their feet, to have answers ready, to never let the conversation drop, to fill awkward pauses with something, anything. But that training creates a massive blind spot. It makes you reactive instead of strategic. It puts you in a position where you're constantly giving away information while getting nothing back. When you make an offer and then stop talking, something shifts. The other person starts evaluating whether they're making a mistake. They begin justifying their position to themselves. They reveal objections you never asked about. They negotiate against themselves. All because you had the discipline to stay quiet. High performance isn't about having more to say. It's about knowing when saying nothing is the most powerful move on the board. And once you understand this mechanism, every conversation becomes an opportunity to gain advantage without speaking a word. How silence forces others to negotiate against themselves. Let me show you exactly how this works in practice. You're in a salary negotiation. You state your number, then you stop. Completely. No justification. No explanation. No softening. Just direct eye contact and silence. The recruiter expected you to defend that number. Expected you to explain why you're worth it. But you don't. You just wait. What happens next is fascinating. Their brain starts running scenarios. Did I lowball this person? Do they have other offers? Are they more valuable than I thought? The silence communicates certainty. It communicates options. It communicates that you don't need to convince them because you already know your worth. Now contrast that with the typical approach. Someone states a number and immediately starts justifying it. I know it's high, but considering my experience and the market rate, already losing. Because justification implies doubt. It implies you're trying to convince yourself as much as them. The silence would have done the work for you. This principle shows up in unexpected places. Detectives know that suspects break during pauses, not during rapid-fire questions. The human mind cannot tolerate informational voids. It generates narratives, exposes fears, creates problems that didn't exist. During strategic silence, the other person is literally doing your work for you. Top-tier executives use this in board meetings. When someone presents a weak idea, they don't immediately counter it. They let silence hang. That psychological pressure forces the presenter to second-guess themselves, to spot their own holes, to retract or modify without anyone saying a word. It's mental efficiency. It's conservation of energy. It's focus in its purest form. Here's what most people don't realize. When you talk too much, you telegraph weakness. You show your hand. You reveal how badly you want the deal. Strategic silence conceals your position. It creates mystery. It elevates your perceived value. Because if you're comfortable not speaking, you must have options. You must not be desperate. You must be evaluating whether they're even worth your time. The shift isn't in what you say. It's in what you refuse to say. And that refusal creates more power than any argument ever could. What separates strategic silence from weakness? There's a type of silence that destroys deals. It's passive silence, hesitant silence, The kind where you're quiet because you don't know what to say. That silence doesn't project power. It projects uncertainty. The difference between strategic silence and weak silence is intention and presence. Strategic silence is deliberate. You choose the exact moment to stop talking. Your body language remains composed. Your eye contact stays steady. Your breathing is controlled. You're not lost. You're leading through absence. That distinction changes everything. Because energy is readable. If you're uncomfortable, they sense it. If you're in control, they sense that too. Here's a real scenario. You present a price. The client says, "That's too high." Most people immediately justify, discount, or retreat. But what if you just hold their gaze and say nothing? 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 8 seconds. Watch what happens. They start elaborating. "Our budget this quarter is tight, but maybe we could structure it differently." Or, "Can you bring that down at all?" See what just happened? They started negotiating with themselves. The key is embracing discomfort. Mental discipline means accepting that the pause might feel strange, but that strangeness is exactly what creates movement. Elite poker players know that whoever speaks first after a big bet is usually losing. Silence is a test of psychological strength. If this content is giving you value, hit that like button. It helps the algorithm push this to more people who need it. Now here's the crucial part. Silence needs calibration. If the person across from you is also comfortable with pauses, you need to adjust. Not everyone reacts the same way to voids. Some corporate cultures value direct communication, and extended pauses might read as unprepared. That's where adaptive intelligence comes in. You calibrate based on context. In complex B2B sales, 3 to 5 second pauses after strategic questions are gold. In rapid negotiations, it might be 2 seconds, but intense. The question isn't duration, it's the quality of a presence during that time. Your silence should feel weighted, not empty. Why top leaders weaponize silence for authority? Let's talk about leadership, because silence isn't just a negotiation tactic. It's a command tool. Leaders who talk constantly dilute their authority. Leaders who know when to stay quiet amplify every word they speak. This comes from an ancient principle: scarcity creates value. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. People pay closer attention. They can't predict what comes next. You become unpredictable, and unpredictability generates respect. Think about great military commanders. They didn't issue orders constantly. They gave one clear directive, then silence. That silence communicated absolute confidence in the decision. No room for questioning. In modern corporate environments, this translates to meetings. You make a point and stop. You don't over-justify. You don't try to convince everyone in real time. You plant the idea, hold the silence, and let it breathe. People start processing, debating among themselves, filling the void with their own analysis. And you position yourself as the central axis of that conversation without dominating verbally. There's a concept used in intelligence interrogations: letting silence work. When an interrogator asks a difficult question and maintains absolute silence, the subject feels mounting pressure to fill that void. Often, they reveal information they didn't need to. The same applies in leadership contexts. When a team member brings you a problem, instead of immediately solving it, you can ask, "What do you think you should do?" and then go silent. This forces autonomy, develops critical thinking, and conserves your mental energy. Clarity comes from emptiness. Resilience comes from sustaining discomfort. Discipline is refusing the compulsion to fill every second with words. Ancient masters of rhetoric knew that well-placed pauses made speeches unforgettable. It wasn't about volume of information. It was about emotional impact per phrase. And here's something few people notice. Silence also protects you. When you talk too much, you give ammunition to be countered. When you're direct and then go quiet, you make counter-arguments harder. Your message stays cleaner, stronger, more difficult to deconstruct. Silence is an absence of communication. It's communication in its most concentrated form. How to build silence into your performance system. So how do you make this operational? First, train awareness. Most people don't even notice when they're talking from anxiety. Record your meetings, your negotiation calls. Listen back. How many times did you fill pauses unnecessarily? How many times did you weaken your position by adding justifications nobody asked for? Second step, identify strategic silence points. After making a proposal, after asking a difficult question, after hearing an objection, these are leverage moments. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause. Count to 5 mentally. Breathe. Observe. Only then do you decide whether to speak or extend the silence. Third, combine silence with intentional body language. Insecure silence comes with averted eyes, closed posture, nervous gestures. Strategic silence comes with steady eye contact, open stance, controlled breathing. Your body needs to communicate, I'm comfortable here, I'm not in a hurry. You can process this at your pace. High performers treat communication like energy. You don't waste energy talking excessively. You concentrate energy in key moments. Think like an archer. They don't shoot arrows constantly. They aim, breathe, hold the tension, and release at the precise moment. Silence is the tension before release. Here's a powerful exercise. In your next 3 negotiations or important conversations, force 5-second pauses after strategic questions. Just that. Observe what happens. Watch how people start revealing themselves, how they shift tone, how they offer information you didn't request. This will recalibrate your perception of conversational power. One final layer, silence, also helps you process better. When you're not talking, you're absorbing. You're reading micro-expressions, catching hesitations, identifying weaknesses in their reasoning. Investigator mindset. You gather data before acting. You don't master this overnight. But once you start seeing results, once you watch someone negotiate themselves down while you sit in silence, once you feel the shift in power dynamics, you'll never go back to filling every pause with words. If this video shifted how you think about communication, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Drop a comment telling me which part hit hardest, because this is just the beginning of understanding how the human mind really operates under pressure and power.